8 minutes, 46 seconds. In that span of time, George Floyd died in the custody of Minneapolis police right before our eyes. It sparked an outcry for equality and change in law enforcement. And in September, Governor Chris Sununu approving all recommendations made by the Commission on Law Enforcement Accountability. And tonight, members of that commission say this is just step one. At a time when calls for social justice and police reform have echoed throughout the nation, more than a dozen signatures by New Hampshire's Law Enforcement Accountability Commission signified a unanimous call to action.
You know, I think that we certainly have understood needs to address certain areas, and this gave us the opportunity.
The Attorney General's office is just one arm of the collective who's been tasked with amending the checks and balances within New Hampshire's justice system. After more than 2 months of collaboration, the committee penned 48 recommendations, all of which were approved by Governor Sununu.
We want to make sure that when law enforcement is having interactions with our community members, that it's, a positive one, and that nothing bad happens, right? That's what we're looking for.
Joseph says one promising recommendation is the creation of an independent agency to investigate incidents of officer misconduct. Currently, an arbiter can overrule a chief's decision to fire an officer, as is the case with Aaron Brown, who was fired in 2018 from Manchester PD for making racist comments. An arbiter ruled Brown should be reinstated with back pay.
There's been this narrative and this view of law enforcement investigating itself and then telling the public, well, we looked at this, it's not sustained. This allegation is not sustained, or the officer was justified for his actions. We've heard this so much, and now this new agency, granted, it will be made up of law enforcement personnel, but it's independent. It's not connected to any agencies.
Previously, the AG's office did not have the authority to conduct its own investigation of a police department unless a formal complaint was made.
Under one of the recommendations, the thought was that you could have random audits to see if there is something in a personnel file, that perhaps there was an officer who committed a criminal act or did something improper that wasn't brought to light for whatever reason, whether that was a nefarious reason or just somebody that didn't understand that they should have brought that to light.
Additionally, there will be increased hours of curriculum on implicit bias training for all New Hampshire law enforcement agencies, which advocates say hasn't been updated in decades.
PSTC is going to be increasing their cultural dynamics and diversity curriculum to more than 2 hours. So as it sits right now, it's only 2 hours long, and you cannot sum up the entire culture of Black people or people of color in 2 hours worth of training. That's just not possible.
Well, did you know the first African American to publish a novel in North America was from New Hampshire? Meet Harriet Wilson, affectionately known as Hattie. She was born in Milford. She later moved to Massachusetts, where she wrote her controversial narrative from the life of a free Black. If you visit Milford's Bicentennial Park, you'll find a sculpture of Wilson, reportedly the first statue in the Granite State to honor a person of color.
And one of the people who pushed for that statue is Jerry Ann Boges. She is executive director of the Black Heritage Trail, and she was the driving force behind the Harriet Wilson Project, a nonprofit that raises awareness about Wilson's life. And decades after Harriet Wilson's death, another Black author has made a name for himself in New Hampshire. Sean McDonald takes us inside Sketches of Lee. We want to warn you, some of the language may be difficult to hear.
Hey, girl.
In many ways, Mike Ward is like any other resident in this rural section of Lee, raising pigs and growing veggies in the yard. But his life story differs from many because of his skin color.
One of the things that I found in telling stories about my family is it hurts. It hurts people.
When the Ward family moved to Lee, New Hampshire in the late 1950s, there were very few African Americans.
We were accepted by some people and not by others. For the most part, people that didn't accept us, just left us alone.
But the family did experience overt racism, sometimes in threatening calls to their house.
Well, we had people when we first showed up who would call and tell us we had 15 minutes to vacate the house because they were coming to burn the bastard down.
Despite that, the Ward family persevered. Mike's dad, Harold, was known for being the kind man who ran a diner in Exeter. Mike Ward would later write his family story in 2 books, known as The Sketches of Lee, filled with funny stories of adapting to cold winters, to more serious topics, like the time a teacher stopped his family from being teased at school.
You know, colored people have put up with enough crap in this country, and I'm not going to stand for it in my classroom. I should have been fired. I guess I was lucky. No, Mr. Woodhead, you were brave.
I'm Sean McDonald, WMUR News 9.
New Hampshire's religious community is rich with history and contributions from the Black community. We want to introduce you to Reverend Edmund Kelly. Born to a slave, Kelly's first connection to New England came after he escaped to Massachusetts in 1843. He later moved back to the South before returning to New England and settling in Portsmouth in 1873, where he helped organize the People's Baptist Church.
People's Baptist began in 1873 when a small group started gathering in private homes, and later in Portsmouth's former community meeting house. As a divinity student at Boston University, young Martin Luther King Jr. delivered the 59th anniversary keynote address at the church. In 1968, members of the church founded New Hope Baptist Church, which continued the legacy of People's Baptist. Our journey takes us to the story of a man some call a modern-day saint.
Jonathan Daniels heard Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s call for help during the civil rights movement and traveled to Alabama in 1965. Instead of coming back to the Granite State after the march in Selma, the 26-year-old seminary student stayed in the South to work on voting rights and the integration of churches. Daniels was one of 30 people arrested for picketing white stores. Right after his release, he tried to buy a drink from a store across from the jail when a part-time deputy threatened Daniels and his friends with a shotgun, firing at a black teenage girl. Daniels pushed her out of the way and was killed instantly. Dr. King said Daniels had a, quote, promising life, and it is still a tragedy that it was cut short. Daniels is now listed in the Memorial Book of the Saints and Martyrs at Canterbury Cathedral in Great Britain. In 1991, his name was adopted to the Church of Calendar Saints and is remembered every August 14th. Having a conversation about race with your children.
Professionally, kids today are really ultra aware.
Coming up, how one mother is teaching her multiracial children to honor their Black heritage and the advice she has for other parents.